I was supposed to make this video like 2 weeks ago. But anyway, here we are. Today I want to teach you how to make some of the sounds that you can find on my Modus Vitae Pigments preset pack. This is still on intro sale, and every other preset pack of my webpage is also on sale, so don't miss it. The links are going to be in the description. With that said, let's start. So the first one is cool as fuck. I love to create sequences with pigments, and I love when the sound is plucky and hits hard. That's why I combined the analog engine with the model engine to create something unique. The way I did it was to choose a sawtooth wave and then play around with the sequencer. Now, as you can see, the polymetry is only to change a little bit of the octaves from time to time. Of course, this works with any sequence, not only this one, so you can do whatever you want. For this, I was having a lot of fun using the cluster filters, and I chose the cluster Pig 18. Now, this gives me a very nice resonant sound that I wanted to move. But I didn't want it to be random, so I chose a function to control the position of it. I draw something like this, so I had a rhythm, and again you can create the rhythm that you want. The type of movement is completely optional. Still, I felt it was lacking a little bit of pluckiness, so I used another function, this time to control a second filter, a more typical low-pass filter. Now, all of that's great, but to make it more unique, I added the model engine. The idea that I had was to make something more transient-like. Of course, it can be tonal, but it will enhance the pluckiness even more in a different way, giving you a different timbre. So for that, you have to keep it brighter. The same with the warp. I mean, with it, you can control where you put the harmonics, and if you go to the right, it will get, well, more higher harmonics. And I ended up going up 2 octaves on the chorus pitch. The another thing that I made to change the timbre, but in a subtle way, was to add a bit crusher and actually use a random to start changing the downsampling. You know that I love that kind of timbre, but I kept the dry-wet control somewhat on the less side. To enhance a little bit more of the sound, you can use a multiband compressor, and the other effects are somewhat optional because it's your typical chorus, delays, and even a reverb. Now, in terms of the macros, you can see that I'm controlling the volume of a second oscillator that has 1 octave below, and also I'm taking away the pluckiness and making it more energetic. And that's basically cool as fuck. Let's go now to new roll. If you like what you're learning today, please give a like to the video. That's the most important thing, but also subscribe to the channel. When I was playing with the model engine, I really liked the granular friction. So I thought, well, I bet I can make a rolling bass out of it. Of course, you need to keep the collision all the way up, so the first one is always harder. But then you set the granular, and I set the rate to 1/16. The granular sample that worked the best for me was the low fill. Now, of course, on the timbre, I chose bass, and on form, I actually chose guitar, because it gave me this, well, stringy, plucky stringy thing. The brilliance is all the way up, so I have a lot of energy, but the decay is very low, because if I want it to roll, it needs to be plucky. The warp is also going down, because that way I put the harmonics in a lower state. And to be honest, with the range and the shape, it was just trial and error. Now, as this is a bass and the model engine is not too strong on that, I increased the bass to 200%. And in terms of stereo, I didn't turn it off, but I went all the way down with the spread because I actually want to have the option to make it wider. Now, of course, to make it roll better, I ended up using a low-pass filter, and I'm modulating the cutoff point with a function. The function is a simple envelope, but I kept it to be the same rate as the granular. Then I couldn't help myself, and to add more variation, I used a cluster peaks, but very subtle in terms of resonance. I'm also moving it around with an LFO to get variations in sound. If you listen only to the analog engine on the original, it's just a transient. The way I made it was to apply FM and set the third oscillator to a sawtooth wave. That means that the transient is going to be only when you press a key. In terms of effects, you cannot go wrong with a multiband compressor, and I'm actually adding some saturation to make it hit harder. And I'm repeating the same downsampling trick, but this time instead of random, I'm using a function. So I get this like step pyramid kind of movement. Then the chorus is optional, you can control it with a macro, and I used another multiband compressor just to control a little bit of the sound. So that's basically new roll. Now the last preset that I wanted to show how to make today, it's called Cold Steam. This is a pad, but it's made on the model engine. You see, when I was playing around with the friction modes, I realized that model is very useful to create very unique kind of pads. Usually they are very cold, that's why the name. The way I made this one was by lowering the bass on the string mode, choosing nylon as the timbre, and guitar as the form. To keep it stereo, I increased the detuning, and I also have the decay somewhat high. Now I wanted to add variations for each new key that you press, and that's why I use the randoms to modulate different things. For instance, the morph on the shaper, the warp, and also the shape on the morph. I was playing around with using the collision with higher attack, but then I realized that the transient on the knife sample sounds very nice for this. Now, to add another cold layer to the sound, I used this deep bell sample. I thought to use it on granular mode, but on itself, it already sounds nice. The great thing is that this is only a layer. The main sound comes from the module. To control better the mids, I used a multiband compressor, and then I follow it by a chorus and a shimmer reverb. After that, we have a delay and also a regular reverb. Now the great thing is that for the model engine, you will get a lot of different kind of sounds when you start changing the parameters. So it's always good to choose some of these parameters to be modulated by a macro. So that way you can start changing the sound as you play, giving you a more ethereal kind of feel. Finally, to make it a little bit more paddy, I used a filter to control the high end and also to make it get brighter with time. For that, I used envelope 2 to control the cutoff point. Very simple. So these are the 3 presets from Modus Vitae that I wanted to share with you. I hope you liked them, and if you did, consider buying the preset pack. The sale is going to be up until the end of the month, so you have time to decide to buy it. Thank you so much for watching, I will see you next time, and bye bye!